The webinar you're attending today is how to immediately improve your close rate and your ability to close prospects. Let's just jump right in. And I want to start out with talking about a concept that I personally believe, and in fact, I was just having a debate about this last night with someone else who is on the other side of this, and it's the debate of, are salespeople born or are salespeople built? And the person I was debating with truly believes that salespeople are born. That there are some salespeople that just you don't really need to teach them. They go out and they make it happen. And I agree with that. I agree that there is a subset of the world of salespeople that there are those naturals that they really can't subscribe to a certain methodology. You can't teach them too much or manage them too hard, and they just blow out their numbers. But I think that I personally believe that those are the exception, and the majority of us are people who success might come and go, and there are a lot of salespeople out there that could probably improve their results, and then I also believe that sales is a skill and is something that can be taught. I think that there are key things that you can do and not things that you can avoid doing that can have an immediate improvement on your results. We're going to talk about some of those here today. You can teach those to someone, and it really doesn't matter their personality. They could even be introverted. Someone doesn't have to be an extrovert in order to be a successful salesperson. I think personally, a lot of sales managers often hire someone based on their level of outspokenness or gregariousness or how extroverted they appear. I personally believe that it does help to be a little outgoing as a salesperson, but sometimes being too extroverted can hinder a salesperson in terms of compromising their ability to listen, and which is what I personally believe is one of the most important sales skills. So this is one of my philosophies, and I'm going to show you. Everything I'm going to show you today reinforces the logic that salespeople are not born; they're built, or at least you can build salespeople. And if you completely disagree with that, then you might be joining in on the wrong webinar. But if you choose to stay with us, hopefully I can sway you to kind of see things from my angle. But one of the reasons why I think salespeople can be built is I also believe that the best salesperson is the one that asks the best questions. And the topic here today is really about closing, right? So we're going to improve your ability to be a closer by getting you to ask the right questions or getting you to ask more questions. And going back to the salespeople are born concept, I've heard a lot of sales managers interviewing people or talking about their people that work underneath them, and say that that person's a natural closer. They just know how to close the deal. Well, I personally don't think that closing is about being pushy or being necessarily being persistent. It's all about asking the right questions and responding to certain things in the right ways, and we're gonna show you that here today. I want to take a step back and talk about an example, and I want you to either close your eyes or close your eyes figuratively speaking, and picture going to a department store and walking through the refrigerator section, and you're looking at a refrigerator, and a salesperson walks up to offer you help. In theory, this salesperson should be probably trying to sell you something. I know there are some department stores that they say their salespeople aren't on commission, but probably if they're working in the department, they get compensated in some way or another when you buy a refrigerator, whether it's a bonus or some sort of performance objective. So let's say this salesperson walks over to you and they say, can I help you with anything? Right? And let's say they identify that you're looking at refrigerators. Now, what typically happens in this scenario, if you've ever been in this exact scenario or one like it, what will happen probably the majority of the time is this salesperson will say, well, let me show you the Kenmore. refrigerators. And let me show you. Here we have the Whirlpool, and here this one has this features, and this one has these features, and that's sort of the talk track, the pitch that they go down. And the problem with that approach is it's very product based. They're showing you the products, and in almost every case, if not most, they jump right to that, and that's really the only line of discussion that they go down. Now, what did they skip in that process? Well, that salesperson probably could have asked some really good questions. Some questions like, what motivated you to take time out of your day to come here to look at refrigerators? What kind of refrigerator do you currently have? Is your current refrigerator causing any problems that is motivating you to replace it? How old is your current refrigerator? What type of price range are you trying to stay within on your neck if you were to purchase something? Are there any features that are important to you? Have you ever gone to buy something fairly routine at a store or whatever, and had someone ask you those questions? You probably haven't. And the thing is that those would be great questions for this salesperson to ask, because that's going to help them to identify how qualified of a prospect you are. Let's say that you're walking through the refrigerator section and you're just waiting for the person that you're with to buy whatever they're buying, and you're just killing time. It's important for that salesperson to identify that, because then they might not want to waste so much time trying to sell you. If you're not, because then you really wouldn't be a qualified prospect. They might, if they can identify that, they might leave you with something like, well, I'll let you look around, wave me down if you have a question, and then they can go move on to find someone else who is a qualified prospect, who is there to buy something. By the way, that will improve their close rate, because if they try to close you and you're not qualified, you're going to be a hard prospect to close. But if they get away from you and get over to the more qualified prospects, they're going to be able to close deals easier. So just keep that in mind. I'll come back to that point. But the point here is that is the salesperson gonna at this department store, are they gonna do okay if they just talk about products? Yeah, people are gonna buy whatever they're gonna naturally buy. They might sell some refrigerators or appliances. Would they improve their results if they asked better questions? I'm confident they would. Would they improve the relationships with their buyers? Build better rapport? I mean, think if someone asked you all those questions, you'd be impressed. You would want to buy from that person. You would maybe want to refer other people that need a refrigerator to go buy from you. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. There's a lot that we just covered in that example, but it's really those questions throughout the process that will make that person a better closer. But now let's move forward directly into how we're going to make you a better closer immediately. And it starts with focusing on the right goal. And this is a graphic that I show from time to time. And the key thing in this graphic is the 3 stages on the left. These are 3 main stages that you might take a prospect through in your early prospecting stages, right? Beyond this, there's going back and forth on the proposal, the quote, whatever. So, but common to most of us are these 3 stages. And the first one is we talk to someone for the first time, whether that's on a cold call, in an email, on an inbound call, at a networking event. Typically is about 2 to 5 minutes, and then after that is a first real conversation. This is an appointment. We schedule an appointment with someone. The second stage could happen at the same time of the cold call, but I typically like to spread these stages out individually. It depends what product you sell and whatnot. And then the third stage might be some sort of presentation, demonstration, depending on what you sell. It could be the delivery of pricing. Your demonstration could happen at your appointment that you schedule. So stages 2 and 3 could be combined. The reason why I'm showing you this is that we always have to stop and remind ourselves to not try to sell the product. We as salespeople, with quotas to hit, with money that we want to make, with products that we want to sell, we can, if we're even if we're not directly trying to close the prospect, we're still trying to validate that they're interested in buying from us every time we talk to the prospect. Meaning, we're always trying to close the product sale, even if, again, even if you're not saying, trying to, verbally close the deal, you're always going in this direction of, is this person gonna will this person buy from me? Does this person fit with buying from me? And the thing that I want to point out is that that's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to sell the product, but the immediate goal is to move to the next stage in your sales process. And when you really never lose sight of that, it's not necessarily learning that or becoming aware of that, because you can easily forget this. It's about always staying aware that your immediate goal is to move to the next stage of your sales process. So when we're on a cold call, the goal is to close the appointment. It's not to close the sale. If we're in the appointment, our goal is to get to the demo, to get to the presentation, not to close the sale. So when you realize that, then you can realize that there's certain things you need to be focused on closing for. The topic here today is how to be a better closer. So it's not just about closing more sales, it's about how to close the appointments, how to close the demos. And so that's the first thing that you need to keep in mind. Closing should be the easiest step in your process. If you interviewed 100 salespeople, like if you ever watch Family Feud, they interview 100 people and ask them the same question, and I would guess that the number one answer, if you asked 100 salespeople, what is the one thing you want to improve in your sales skills? They would say, I think the number one answer would be to be a better closer. And what I truly believe is that closing should be the easiest thing that you do as a salesperson. I think that if you do all the right things, deals should close themselves. And these are some of the things that you should do to make closing easier, and I call these indirect closing tactics. So if you do these, again, closing is going to be real easy for you. So forget about trying to be a better closer. You can begin by trying to do all of these things. And just to go through these real quick, the first one is communicating the value that you offer, the benefits. If you go back to that, let's go back to the refrigerator salesperson as an example when we go through some of these. If there's a feature in the refrigerator and the salesperson just talks about the feature, right? Let's say that it's a power saving feature. Now, if the salesperson just talks about the power saving feature and how it works, that's really kind of feature and talk product speak. That's not really talking about the value that you offer. The prospect might not really get what it means to them to have the power saving feature. But if the salesperson communicates what that power saving feature means to the buyer in terms of decreasing their electricity costs, maybe that power saving feature can decrease the electric bill because a refrigerator runs all day. Maybe it decreases the electric bill by $100 a month. If the salesperson doesn't communicate that value and thinks that the prospect just understands it, then they're not communicating value. And it's by communicating and painting that picture of value that makes it easier for that prospect to buy. You can go one step further to building a business case, creating an ROI calculation, identifying the payback period. If you save $100 a month, how quickly does that feature, that higher end refrigerator, take to pay for itself? Finding the prospect pain. So figuring out what the prospect is having challenges with will make closing easier for you. Qualifying the prospect. I think this one topic, qualifying, is the easiest, most quickest way for you to become a better closer. Let's say if you improve how you screen, you're going to immediately improve your close rate because you're going to be chasing better quality prospects. For example, if the salesperson said, what brings you out today, and the prospect says, well, I'm waiting for my wife, then that's not somebody that the salesperson is going to be able to close, so they're going to move on. Whereas if they didn't have that information and they really try to push, it's going to be hard to close. building rapport, building relationships, building interest, building credibility. Those are all things that are going to make the deal close itself at the end. So those are indirect closing tactics, right? If you do all those, closing is going to be easy. But let's of course go through some direct closing tactics. There's a concept of trial closing. So trial closing is sort of like a test close. You're not directly closing the sale or asking for the business, but you're checking in with the prospect. You're sort of checking in to see where the prospect is, what they're thinking. And so here are some examples of questions that you can ask to trial close. Let's say you're halfway through a meeting or through a presentation. Instead of just powering forward, if this was more interactive and a smaller audience and you all could talk, this is a great question for me to ask you. What do you think about what we've discussed so far? Right? Because we're not able to interact, I'm going to have to continue on. But maybe you all are completely disagreeing with what I'm talking about here. And so it's really powerful when you're giving a presentation to say, hey, what do you think about this? Maybe you can get validation that it's all good and they love it. But maybe you might identify that this isn't what we were expecting to see. So what that allows you to do is make adjustments to correct and go in the right direction. So that could either be during a meeting or during a sales cycle, or that's valuable information. So you might show something that's a great feature. You can see how that might help a customer, but how would that feature help you? Or is this something you could see your employees using? Are we heading in the right direction? Does this agenda for the meeting today match what you were hoping to see? So these are check-in questions. You can trial close every time you speak with a prospect. You're working through your sales process. You can just check in. Hey, are we still on track? Is this all still matching up with what you're needing? Again, so those questions aren't saying, are you going to buy from me? They're not saying, will you buy from me today? They're checking in, and again, it's like a test close. So trial closing, that'll help your close rate, because there's not going to be a lot of big surprises at the end, right? Like if I can check in with you right now to say, are you liking this information? Do you think this is helpful? And you say yes, then I know we're going to be in an okay place at the end, instead of being surprised. So let's move on. These are some closing tactics. The assumptive close. So these are fairly kind of salesy. I don't use them a whole lot, but I'll give them to you in case you weren't aware of them. An assumptive close is really assuming that the prospect's going to buy from you. So an example is, what time would you like us to put you down for a free consultation? Right? So in this example, the prospect hasn't said, I want a free consultation, right? They're asking us questions and we're going back and forth, and hey, well, what time do you want me to put you down, right? So it's a bit aggressive. It's a bit I don't even know if I'd even call it as persuasive. You're not really persuading them. It's more pushy, and you might get people to move forward. I'm always resistant to tactics like this and tactics that are manipulative. This isn't real manipulative, but it is a bit pushy. And so what you can do is you could get someone to say, it can take someone off guard and they can agree to the consultation. And I typically want to have the free consultation with people that have asked for the free consultation, which makes them more qualified. Does that mean I might miss out on some people that could have been sort of pushed to have a free consultation? Maybe I'm missing out. But I'm also not spending time either meeting with people, spending time waiting for meetings that people don't show up for because they were, assumptively closed. But use it however you like. There's another version of that, which is the alternative close. And so this is where you're assuming that, well, you're giving the prospect two options. And then it's a little bit of an assumptive close as well. We have workshops available on Monday afternoon and Thursday morning. Which one would you prefer signing up for, right? So you're giving two options and going for the close that way. So these are some of the tactics I kind of like, which is the soft close. And it's letting the prospect lead. So letting the prospect determine what to do next and what direction to go. And so some of the ways you do that is, like at the end of a meeting or when you're about to close for the next step in your process, asking the prospect, what do you want to do next? What direction do you want to go in? Do you want to continue to talk about this? So do you want to continue to talk about this as a really soft way to close, like at the end of a meeting, or end of a cold call. Let's say you've talked a little bit about yourselves, you've had a little bit of interaction, and you might say, hey, well, I don't know, is this something you want to continue to talk about? The thing about these questions is they're very soft, and what you really need to do in order for these to work well is you need to do a lot of the other stuff, like the other indirect closing tactics, or the other core concepts. And so if you're really pushy and you don't communicate value and you don't qualify and you don't find pain and you don't do all these core things, then when you say to a prospect, what do you want to do next? An answer might be, I'd like to end the call, or I don't want to do anything next. I'd like you to let me to get back to work. So you really have to do a lot of the other things well in order to be confident enough to say, hey, is this something you want to continue to talk about? But again, if you do everything and then you do close in this way, it's really impressive. It builds rapport. The prospects that you do end up talking to are extremely qualified because there was no pushing them to move forward. You're going exactly at the pace and in the direction they want to. So another thing you can do is you can kind of, this is just a way to be more assertive. I'm okay with being assertive and versus being aggressive, turning questions into statements. So instead of like being on a call and saying, hey, would you like to meet next week? You could say you could just turn that into a statement, which is saying something like, hey, we should meet next week. Based on what you've just answered to a couple of my questions, I think we would have a really productive conversation. There's something I want to show you. We should definitely meet next week. So it's just a very assertive, confident way to communicate, and that is more persuasive than asking, hey, would you be open to putting a meeting on the calendar? I'm also very, I hear a lot of like sometimes salespeople using fairly insecure, negative language, like I'm sorry to bother you. I know you're busy. It's such weak language, right? Like if you had a bag of $1 million and you were trying to figure out who it belonged to, would you walk up to people and say, I'm sorry to bother you. I'll only take a few minutes of your time. I know you're busy, right? You wouldn't talk that weak. You would say, holy whatever, I have something really great here, and I don't know whether it's yours or not. You're gonna love it. If it is, you're gonna want to hear what I have to say. So that's something that kind of happens. You get that more confident, that swagger when you turn questions into statements. There's some very direct, hard closing questions that you can ask when you are trying to close. So just being very direct. So the soft closing is to the prospect, what direction do you want to go here? What do you want to do next? The flip side of that, to turn that up a notch and be a little bit harder of a closer, are you ready to move forward to the next step in the process? What would you need in order to make a commitment today? Or a commitment to move forward, right? So let's say you're going back and forth. They're asking you questions. They're asking you for information, right? Like, can you offer an extended warranty or something, right? So, going back to them and saying, well, if I had an extended warranty, is that all you need to make a decision? If I give you the extended warranty, are you going to be able to make a commitment to move forward? And if the answer is I don't know or no, okay, well, what do you need? Tell me exactly what you need. And, that way, we can save a lot of time. And either I can give you what you need and we can move forward, or we can identify that we're not going to be able to match up and we can agree to be friends and part ways. If you had everything that you want, are you prepared to move forward? So kind of similar to that last question. If we were able to give you what you were asking for, would you be able to move forward with a purchase? When are you going to make a decision? So some of this you wouldn't ask all of those. Those are some different variations of questions to really hone in on getting the prospect to move forward, or what you need to do in order to get the prospect to move forward. When are you going? If delaying the decision, so a lot of times when you go for the close, the prospect might say, call me back in 6 months, or we're not going to be able to do anything for another 6 months. And so a great question to ask in that scenario is okay, but yeah, okay, I can check back with you in 6 months. But do you mind if I ask, is something going to be different, or is there some sort of change that is going to happen at 6 months that will make that a better time for us to talk? I mean, is is there a budget opening up? Is there some project that's finishing up? Or is it that you're too busy to look at this right now? Because the reason why, the thing that I would be concerned about is if you're just too busy to look at this right now, and that's preventing you from seeing value in what we're talking about, then are you going? Is it probably extremely likely that in 6 months you're going to be very busy too, and then you still might be too busy to really look at this? I mean, I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want to identify, is 6 months going to be a good time for us to talk? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not a good fit, and 6 months will be the same thing. So some ways to push back there. Is there anything that is preventing you from being able to move forward with this purchase today, or being able to move forward with this purchase? So some questions there to probe when you're trying to close. A tool here that you can use is an evaluation plan. And so this is a tool that you basically, what it is it's identifying all the steps. Like if we're talking today and we're at the early stages of the sales process, and the end of the sales process is us getting you live, switched over, implemented, whatever, there's going to be all these steps in between those two events. And so this is kind of a map that you can create, and it lists out all the major events, steps between now and then, who owns what, the time frame when they should be done in order to reach the certain end goal at a certain date. And you can build this with your prospects. You could maybe take a first pass at the evaluation plan with what you think are the main steps, and then present it to them and say, like, this is a good thing to present at the end of your presentation meeting. And you could say, so if you want to move forward, these are some of the steps that we'd go through. Are we on the same page enough to look at this and to consider moving forward? So you kind of a trial close there. And then if the answer is yes, then you can close them on building on either using this timeline, but most likely it won't be perfect with your first pass. So then what you can do is you can work with your prospect to build out the plan of what each party needs to do, and get them to agree on it, and get them to add and make any changes. Then what you can do is throughout your sales process, you can send this updated to them when items close or when items change. And this is a really great tool when your prospect says, well, we're going to have to postpone the meeting, our next meeting, for another month. Well, you can go back to them and say, well, hey, I'm available in a month, and we can definitely do that. If that is going to impact our schedule here, is that a problem for you? If the go live is January 31st instead of December 31st, is that a problem? Because if it's not, it's no big, totally cool with us. But I thought it might be a problem for you, and that's what's going to happen if we delay our next meeting. So as you can see, this tool greatly improves your ability to control the sales process, and that improves your ability to close the prospect. Close the prospect for individual meetings, individual steps, and then ultimately close the deal. And you heard me mention just right there December 31st or January 31st. Let's say that December 31st is a compelling event. So you can try to identify a compelling event for your prospect. This is a date that has some sort of significance, or some sort of event that is tied to a date that, again, has some sort of significance. So some examples could be a contract is expiring, a site's opening up or moving, a current system that they use is being discontinued, So let's just say that December 31st, there's a real estate physical office move, and the go live needs to happen before that. So then when you go back to your prospect and you say, well, this is going to push us to January 31st, is that going to be a problem? Because I know that you have the move on December 31st, so I'm pretty sure there's some sort of conflict there. Then they're going to say yes, that we can't have it. We can't have that. So so that's how the compelling event helps you to keep things on track. If there is not a compelling event, there's a couple things there. One is it means the deal might be less qualified, but so it's great to find a compelling event to fully qualify the opportunity. Although qualified deals don't have to have a compelling event. I mean, there could be a ton of pain and problems and whatnot, and it doesn't mean that there's any date that is tied to the purchase. When that's the case, you can manufacture a compelling event to basically by using some sort of expiring discount, expiring promotion, some sort of limited product availability. Uh, this a tactic that I like to use. I use it all the time, and it's what I call a disqualify tactic. You're disqualifying the prospect from either potentially fitting or wanting or needing or being good for what you're trying to sell them. And some people call this the takeaway. The key to this is it's basically expressing doubt. And so doubt that the two parties should move forward. And if you're not familiar with this, you might begin to hear that, and it's the exact opposite of what most people do when they sell. When you're selling, you're basically you're trying to remove all doubt and establish confidence in moving forward. It's push forward, push forward, push forward. Well, there's something real powerful in doing the exact opposite. And it's an advanced sales tactic, so there's certain times when you'd want to use it. We actually have a whole sales training class on disqualifying because it's powerful and it can help you to close better. It can help you to get stalled deals moving quicker. It can help you to build rapport because there's nothing more impressive and attention grabbing than telling a sales prospect that you're not sure if they really fit well with what you offer, because it's the exact opposite of what every other salesperson is telling them. But some things you can say to disqualify is, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't the right direction for you. You know, it sounds like you could ask them a lot of questions, and let's say oh, that's great, and they love this and that, and you might say, hey, well, I don't know. It sounds like things are pretty good over there, so maybe you don't really need what we have to offer. It doesn't seem like this is something you're all that interested in. I disqualify people all the time. Like I was interviewing a candidate recently over the past few months, and we were going. He seemed real interested right out of the gate, and then I noticed like we were going back and forth, and I was reaching out to him a little bit more than he was reaching out to me, and I was the one hiring him. And so, I disqualified him. I said, I don't know. I mean, it seems like, maybe this isn't a good fit for you, or it's not exactly what you're looking for, because I kind of feel like, we're exploring a relationship, and I'm the one that's always calling you, and you're not calling me, uh, and it's funny because I disqualified him, and then what happens when you disqualify someone? They are a good fit, and if they are sold, they'll start to sell you on why you should not be taking it away from them. That's what's so powerful about this tactic, is that you go from trying to sell someone to getting them to sell you. So it's really cool. Those are some of the core concepts of how to immediately become a better closer. Now, one thing you might think about is one of the things that prevents you from closing deals is that you face an objection when you're trying to close the deal. We actually have a lot of content for dealing with objections and tactics. Our last webinar was on how to consistently get around sales objections. So I'd encourage you to watch that. It's at this URL. It's on our website. If you go to our website, there's a tab for webinars, and there's a sub bullet, a sub tab for previous webinars or past webinars. And you'll see a list there for all the different webinars we've done. You can watch the recordings and get the slides. So one thing, I see closing and dealing with objections as two different things. You do face objections when you try to close, and so being able to deal with those objections could make you a better closer. So I'd encourage you to watch that webinar, but we do have a little bit of time, so I am going to kind of go through some of our objection handling content as it relates to closing. And again, I go back to these steps here because you can handle objections in a different way depending on where you are in this process. Now remember, you're just trying to get to the next stage. And so if you're on a 2 to 5 minute initial contact interaction, cold call, email, at an event, you don't want to try to overcome the objection. Like when you're trying to close the prospect for meeting, you might not really just want to deal with it head on. Like, so if a prospect says I'm not interested, when you're on a cold call, you don't want to try to make them interested. You don't have the time to do that. So you're going to use a tactic that we call redirecting, and I'm going to show you that. But then when you get into the later stages, whether you're at the appointment or you're at the presentation, you then can try to overcome and resolve and diffuse the objection. Let me give you some quick examples. So again, this is during the initial contact, that very first stage. Someone says, I'm not interested. Well, you can redirect to your pre-qualifying questions. So someone says, I'm not interested. Oh, I understand. But if I could ask you real quick, are you currently using any automation tools to manage your inventory levels? So with asking that question, you're most likely going to get an answer to that question. And then you've gotten away from them saying, I'm not interested. Another version of that is, oh, I understand, and I want you to know I'm not trying to sell you anything at this point. I don't even know if we're a good fit for you. That's why I just wanted to ask you real quick, are you currently using any automation tools to manage your inventory level? During the, here's another version of that. So we redirected to our qualifying question. We could also redirect to some of the pain points that we offer. Again, picture this being on a cold call, right? We're not trying to make them interested. We're just trying to keep the call going so that we can then close for the appointment or whatever after we've talked to them for a little bit longer. So we could redirect to pain points. Hey, I understand, but when I talk with other manufacturing companies, they often express challenges with it taking too long to process orders, and there's sometimes errors in the orders. Have you ever been concerned by those? So let's move on. Let's say that's when it comes up at early in a cold call. You haven't really established the call yet. Someone says, "Oh, I'm not interested. Oh, we already used somebody. We're not making any changes right now." So then you really redirect. But let's say you've already asked all your questions. You've already talked about some of the common problems you resolve. So you're at the end of the cold call, the end of the initial contact. You could reply in a different way, which is to say something like, "Hey, I understand. And again, I want you to know I'm not trying to sell you anything at this point. Don't even know if we'd be a good fit." To be honest with you, our goal is simply to open the dialogue between our two companies, so that if you reach a point where actually this objection response is applicable. It's written for the objection of we don't have any budget. But you could do a version of this if we're not interested, or we're not making any changes, or we already use somebody. So our goal is simply to open a dialogue between our two companies, so that if you reach a point where the budget becomes available, there is budget available, you'll know who we are and what we do and how we can help and what we offer. So that's really our goal. We're not we're not going to come out there and try to get you to sign up. We just really want to learn a little bit about you and talk to you a little bit about us. Can I put 15-20 minutes on your calendar next Tuesday or Thursday afternoon? So you're going for the close for the appointment there. It's a way and trying to get around that objection. Let's say that you're in the appointment. So we've moved down the stage in our sales process. You're in the appointment, but you're before that third stage. So you're in the appointment or just after the appointment. You're trying to get to a presentation. So remember, a presentation could be showing slides like this. It could be a demonstration. Could be delivering pricing, whatnot. So Again, I think this response here is written for we don't have any budget, so they're trying to stop you from doing your presentation. And so you could do a version of this if they say we don't need anything, or we already have somebody, or whatever. We're not looking to do anything right now. Hey, uh, so Mrs. Prospect, you know, I'd like to ask you, do me a favor and hold off on that concern for right now. We're not trying to close a sale with you, and actually just keep in mind that this response here is that, let's say they just say, we don't have any budget right now, so there's no reason for you to do a demo or to give us a presentation. Okay, well, what I'd like to do is ask you to do me a favor and hold off on that concern right now. We're not trying to close any sale with you, so the topic of budget not being available is not completely relevant. All we're trying to do is clearly identify if we're a good fit for you all. That is why we'd like to spend 20 or 30 minutes with you, show you some information on how we can help you based on what you've shared so far. We will continue to be we will continue forward being fully aware that there is a budget concern on your side and that budget's not available, and we won't spend too much of our time and ask you to take too much of your time. But at the end of our next meeting, we could then identify, let's identify first if there's at least a fit. That way, when budget becomes available down the road, you can determine if we're, how we can help. Because the reality is that if we don't share with you now how we can help, then when budgets are being planned, or budgets open up, you won't have that knowledge about us. So we kind of want to get that out of the way and just open up the dialogue between our two companies. Does that sound reasonable? So there's a response there. Now, when you get into actually after your presentation, right? I guess if you give a demonstration or your presentation or your formal pricing proposal, whatever, this is when it's time to close the sale, and you might get pushback, either budget or not available to move forward, too busy. So here are some overcome attempts to help you to close. So get to the root of what is the concern, right? So if they say we don't have budget right now, does that mean that the budget is there but it's allocated to someone else? Does that mean that the budget is there but they don't see value in what you offer? Does that mean that the budget is not there and they want to move forward and the budget opens up at a particular time and whatnot? Budget displacement, trying to steal budget from somewhere else. Focus on the ROI, so building out your business case, payback period, identify other sources of funding, and look for plant a seed for the future. I mean, if you cannot get over this objection, whatever it is, when you're trying to close, identify if does that mean it's dead and never to talk again, or is there an opportunity in the next year or as things progress. So that is our content and tips on how to become a better closer. I know it's either a lot of information in a short period of time, or you might be needing more help, but we think that those are clear and practical tactics that you can implement really regardless of your skill level and see an immediate improvement. So I just want to share in 5 minutes a little bit more about Sales Scripter, and then we can open it up for questions. But at the most basic level, if you like what we've shared with you today, then based on what we shared with you today, there's some of it that might have seemed a little overwhelming, right? We talked about all those indirect closing tactics, and you might say, well, I'm not doing any of those, or I don't know what you're talking about when you say qualifying, or I don't know how to communicate what my value is. So if you like, or if you need help with any of that, you might want to check out Sales Scripter. And so what Sales Scripter is that half of it, what we offer, is a sales methodology. So if you see these buckets over here on the left, those are some of the core areas where we have content. And when I say content, I mean real, clear, tactical, practical, implementable tactics and stuff that you can do. I've been through a lot of sales training, And I put a lot of the sales training that I've been through into two categories. One is it's all fluff, meaning it's sort of like put on your Nikes and just go do it. And by that you might get motivated when you're in a class or hearing someone speak, but when you get to your desk, you don't know exactly what to do. It's just not clear. Or the other category that I put sales training in is it's too complicated. It's too like there's one book that I read that I liked, but they had this like not 3 by 3, matrix that you're supposed to fill out when you meet with prospects. And while it kind of makes sense, and you can see how it can help, it's just not real digestible, and it's hard to remember, and you can't really be yourself when you're talking with prospects. Our stuff is real. It's real clear things to do and not do. They're all practical and implementable, and it really doesn't matter your level of experience or skill level. So these are some of the areas where we have content. We're talking today about closing. You can see that's one of the modules here. Everything else, we touched on a lot of these today as well. Objections, qualifying, value. So we have content in all of these categories. Our approach is very consultative selling. It's about asking the right questions. So you heard my example about the refrigerator salesperson. And did you see how I turned selling a refrigerator into a consultative sale? Asking good questions and really exploring what the prospect's needs. So regardless of what you sell, whether it's technical or not, you can use approach that's more consultative selling, and we can help you to do that. The other half of SalesScripter is a software application. So it's actually a product that provides you with scripts and objection responses, meeting scripts, key questions to ask, marketing tools, voicemail scripts. It's actually part of the software is actually a library of all these different documents, and that library becomes custom tailored to your particular world, and I'll explain how that happens. But the way that most people interact with us is they might use our methodology, and you can access our methodology through our books, our training videos, live training, online coaching, one-on-one coaching, consulting. A lot of salespeople work with us directly through downloading our ebooks, using our software. The way we probably work best is working with managers and helping them to train their employees. We give away a lot of the methodology for free. If you go to our website, you can download a lot of our ebooks. You can watch hundreds of videos of ours on YouTube, all for free. The reason why we give away all that for free is because it's all completely aligned with our software solution. So our logic is that if you really like and digest all the stuff we have to offer out there for free, you should probably check out our software tool set. And we do have salespeople that use it directly for themselves. But again, the way we probably work best is our software being used by managers to train all of their salespeople. So go to our website to check out our ebooks. These are some of them. We also have a paperback book on Amazon called The Cold Calling Equation. The ebooks are free. The paperback's $15. The paperback is a good thing to buy at some point. The reason why is I'm kind of an old school guy. I like having a book that I can have on my desk and flip through and highlight, and you can do that with our book, although you can buy the Kindle version as well. But it makes a really good reference manual because the way it's organized. There's a chapter on closing, there's a chapter on objections, there's a chapter on gatekeepers, so you can flip to the exact thing that you want help with. You don't have to read it straight through. So it's a really good resource to have on your desk to buy your salespeople if you're a manager. These are the training modules that are actually out on YouTube for free. So you can put yourself through a full 4-week training program. It's spread out across 4 weeks and into different modules and into a certain order with a lot of logic built in to where it builds on one another, and it's spread out so that you don't get overwhelmed, which is the way you might feel right now after sitting through all of this. So it's designed to be spread out to only pour certain water on your sponge of your brain, so that you can come back and fill it up at a later date. The way SalesScripter works is that the software basically interviews you. Asks you what you sell, how does it help, what problems do you help to fix, What questions should you ask to see if those problems exist? So once you basically answer a lot of those questions like that, all those answers are used to fill out a library of tools and scripts. So you get call scripts, you get email templates, voicemail scripts. You get a tool that's called an objections map, which provides you with all the responses to your common objections. We also have an interactive call tool, which you can have up in front of you while you're making calls, which has big buttons and the objections on one side, and you can see the key questions and what you need to say next. If you want more help, check out I would start with checking out our YouTube channel. You can see all of our training there, all of our webinars that have been recorded, demo videos on Sales Scripter. Subscribe while you're there so you get notified when we upload new videos. Go to our website, download some of our ebooks. You can sign up for Sales Scripter. You can contact us for consulting, coaching, training, and here is my info if you want to contact me directly with any questions.